Iran is losing every single battle in this war, and somehow America still cannot win it. Think about what has happened in the last 30 days. The United States and Israel have killed Iran's supreme leader. They have destroyed most of its air defenses. They have damaged 4 of its key ballistic missile factories and struck at least 29 missile launch sites. Iran's daily missile launches have collapsed, from 350 on the first day of the war to just 4 by early March. On paper, this should already be over, but here is what is also true. Currently, oil is trading at its highest price in history. The International Energy Agency has called this the worst energy shock since the 1970s. Brent crude has surged past more than 50% since the war began 5 weeks ago. And the Strait of Hormuz, the single corridor that carries 20% of all oil on earth, is effectively shut. And this hits you right here. In India, petrol prices have jumped. In Australia, the government is running free public transport because people cannot afford to fill their tanks. The world is bleeding, and Iran is the one holding the knife. So how is a nation that is losing militarily still managing to hold the entire planet hostage? Stay with me for the next 10 minutes, because what Iran is doing right now is one of the most calculated strategic gambits in modern military history. And once you understand it, you will never look at war the same way again. I am Bikash Dev Prasad. This is Geopolitics and Defense. Let's get into it. To understand why this war is unfolding the way it is, we need to go back just 8 months. In June 2025, Israel launched what became known as the 12-day war. Israeli jets destroyed large parts of Iran's air defense network, damaged its nuclear infrastructure, and left Iran militarily exposed. After 12 days, a US brokered truce was signed. Iran absorbed the blow, de-escalated, and the world moved on. But behind the scenes, Iran was in freefall. Its economy was collapsing. The rial was in freefall. And by January 2026, something extraordinary happened. Over 5 million Iranians took to the streets. It was the largest protest movement since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The government responded with a level of violence that shocked the world. Iranian health officials themselves put the death toll from the crackdown at close to 32,000 people. Meanwhile, diplomatic talks on the new nuclear deal were quietly underway in Geneva. The Omani foreign minister, who was mediating, said significant progress had been made. Iran was reportedly ready to make concessions. And then, in the morning of February 28, 2026, right in the middle of those negotiations, the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated surprise attack. They killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. They killed Ali Larijani, one of Iran's most powerful decision makers. They targeted military bases, government buildings, nuclear sites, and according to Iran, schools, hospitals, and at least 120 historical heritage sites. Iran's response came within hours, and it was exactly what Tehran had been preparing for years. Here is one single important thing you need to understand about this war. Iran is not trying to win militarily. Iran is trying to survive long enough to win politically. This is a doctrine that analysts call asymmetric endurance, and it has 3 distinct components. The first is what military experts call missile rationing. Iran built vast underground tunnel networks, hardened, buried deep, designed specifically to survive airstrikes. Even after the US and Israel struck 4 of Iran's key missile factories and 29 launch sites, Iran kept firing. But crucially, it slowed down deliberately, from 500 ballistic missiles and 2,000 drones in the first 5 days to a trickle. Not because it ran out, because it is stretching the war, imposing a constant daily cost, and most importantly, forcing the United States to burn through its own interceptor missile stockpiles, which take months to replace. The second component is geographic saturation. Rather than fighting only on Iranian soil, Tehran widened the battlefield across the entire region. Iran fired missiles at US military bases across at least 7 countries: Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan, and Iraq. Hezbollah escalated into a full second front in Lebanon. The Houthis in Yemen just joined the war this weekend, firing their first ballistic missiles at Israel since it began. This forces the US military to defend in every direction simultaneously, spreading its air defense assets thinner and thinner across thousands of kilometers. The third and the most consequential is the decapitation trap. When the US and Israel killed Khamenei, they believed it would shatter Iran's will to fight. Iran's assembly of experts appointed Khamenei's own son, Mojtaba, as the new supreme leader within hours. The regime did not collapse. The Revolutionary Guards vowed what they called the heaviest offensive operations in the history of the Islamic Republic. Here is a brutal logic. By killing the supreme leader, the US and Israel made it almost impossible for new Iran's leadership to accept any deal that looks like surrender. Because surrender now means political death at home. So what looks like American strength, decapitation, actually removed the only off-ramp that could end this war. That is not a mistake. That is Iran's leverage. But here's the part that no one is talking about clearly enough. Here's where Iran's strategy becomes truly dangerous, because this is no longer just a military conflict. It's a global economic weapon. Iran does not need to fire a single missile to keep winning this war. It only needs to keep the Strait of Hormuz disrupted. Let me show you why that is the most powerful weapon on earth right now. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow corridor, just 34 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, between Iran and Oman. Through this single stretch of water flows approximately 20 million barrels of oil every single day. That is 20% of all the oil consumed on the planet. 1/5 of the world's liquefied natural gas. And pay attention to this. More than 75% of that oil goes to China, India, Japan, and South Korea. Iran does not need to sink every ship. The moment Iran began attacking tankers, 21 confirmed attacks on merchant ships as on mid-March. Global insurance companies stopped covering vessels transiting the strait. No insurance means no shipping. The strait shut down commercially without Iran having to blockade every vessel. The results have been immediate. The IES chief Fateh Birol said this week that the situation is, quote, worse than the two energy crises of the 1970s put together. Brent crude is up more than 50% since February 28th, and Trump today is still publicly considering whether to seize Iran's Kharg Island, which handles 90% of Tehran's oil exports, because he knows that even a US military victory means nothing if the energy crisis keeps bleeding the global economy. This is the genius of Iran's strategy. China needs this oil. India needs this oil. Japan needs this oil. Every one of these countries is now economically motivated to pressurize Washington to end the war. Iran has turned the global economy into its ally, without any of those countries choosing sides. Iran is not just using the strait as a military weapon, it is using it as a political weapon, aimed squarely at Washington. Because this is not just about missiles and military power. This is about whether a weaker nation can force a superpower to back down. So why can the most powerful military in human history not simply end the war? Let me be direct. The US military is winning every tactical engagement. Its B-1 bombers fly over Iranian airspace almost without resistance. Iran's naval fast attack fleet is largely destroyed. Its missile launch capacity has been degraded severely. The Washington Post confirmed that 29 ballistic missile sites and 4 key manufacturing facilities have been struck. But here's the problem. Wars are not decided on the battlefield alone. A senior Iranian official told CNN this week directly that Tehran will determine when the war ends and not Washington, and that Iran is prepared to sustain offensive operations for an extended period. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said just days ago that US expects to finish its objectives in the next couple of weeks. Those two statements cannot both be true, and one of them is almost certainly wrong. The deeper problem for Washington is this: the war is now degrading US military readiness in ways that matter far beyond Iran. Interceptor stockpiles used to defend 7 countries simultaneously take months to replace. The Atlantic Council has warned that the Iran conflict is directly compromising US military preparedness for deterrence against China. And with over 300 American soldiers wounded and the war now entering the 30th day, domestic political pressure is mounting fast. US inflation already running at 3.4% in March, up from 2.4% just 1 month earlier, is being driven primarily by fuel prices. Trump's own economic argument to voters is being undercut by the war he started. Iran is betting that America will decide the cost is not worth it. It does not need to defeat America, it just needs America to decide to leave. Now step back, because while America and Iran are bleeding each other, 2 countries are watching this very quietly and smiling. Russia, with Middle East oil stranded, both India and China face immediate pressure to pivot to Russian crude. India has already received US emergency waivers to import Russian oil. According to Al Jazeera, Russia is likely providing Iran with real-time satellite intelligence on US military assets through its Liana spy satellite system. Russia is strengthening its position in global energy markets without firing a single shot. And China gets roughly 1/3 of its total oil supply through the Strait of Hormuz. Every day this war continues. China has more economic leverage over every energy dependent nation in Asia. Beijing is quietly positioning itself as the only credible peacemaker, while simultaneously deepening Iran's economic dependence on Chinese trade. Pakistan is already hosting ceasefire talks that both sides seem unable to commit to. China is watching, waiting, and gaining. The US went into conflict to weaken Iran and prevent its nuclear program. The unintended consequence, 5 weeks in, is that its 2 most dangerous strategic rivals are both stronger than they were on February 27th. So let me bring this together. Iran is militarily weaker than the United States in every single conventional measure. Its air defenses are shattered. Its supreme leader is dead. Its nuclear program is in ruins. Its missile launches have dropped by over 90% from peak rates. Its economy was already collapsing before the first bomb fell. And yet, on day 30 of this war, it has effectively closed the world's most important energy corridor, triggered the worst oil shock in recorded history, dragged Russia and China deeper into its corner, and positioned itself so that every military defeat looks to its own people like resistance against a superpower. Iran's strategy was never to win the war on the battlefield. It was to make the cost of that war unacceptable to America, to the global economy, and to the world, and then wait. Whether that gamble works is a question that will define the next decade in the Middle East. But one thing is already clear. This war is not playing out the way Washington planned. And every day it continues, the bill gets larger for Iran, for America, and for every country, including India, that depends on a stable world to grow. This is not just a war in the Middle East. This is a test of whether raw military power alone still decides how wars end, or whether strategy, patience, and economic pain has already changed the rules of the game. And right now, nobody has a convincing answer. If this kind of deep analysis is what you have come here for, share this video, because this is exactly the context that the headlines never give you. Hit the like button and follow if you are watching this video on Facebook or Instagram. And hit the bell icon and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there. Jai Hind.